Now we are going to start with the revolution. So what is the Russian Revolution? What was Russia? What was Soviet Union? This is the second part of our today's class. So Russian Revolution is basically, the context is what? The context is that in the Russian Empire you have the Romanov dynasty. What is the name of the dynasty? Romanov. Uh, this dynasty had relations, like family relations with other dynasties in Europe also, with other monarchies in Europe also. So it was a very, very important and very powerful dynasty. The kings or the monarchs of this dynasty were called as czars or czars, with T or with CZ. So it comes from the term Caesar. The term Caesar, even your Julius Caesar for that matter, the term Caesar is from the Latin word which means the Roman emperor. So that's why they are called as czars or tsars. It was an absolute monarchy, which means that there was no parliament, there was no government, there was no lower house or upper house. For example, in UK, you still have the House of Commons and House of Lords, even though when it is a monarchy, it's a constitutional monarchy. So the absolute monarchy in Russian Empire was there, and in 1894, what happens is that Nicholas II of Russia, he's made the Tsar or the king, right? He was also, there was one particular study which was also there, which was that how there was a mystical figure called as Rasputin. There was a mystical figure called as Rasputin who was uh, very infamous, but it was believed that he was magical, and he at you and just bore into your chest, and he had those kinds of piercing eyes. So Nicholas II was in very close conversations or connection with Rasputin. Leaving apart that, so what exactly is the context of the Russian Revolution? So what happens is in 1905, there is a first Russian Revolution. I'm not going into the very details of it, but I'm just skimming through. There's a first Russian Revolution which happens against him. There are military mutinies, which means that his own military is also, and the Russian military was the one of the most powerful and still is one of the most powerful militaries in the world. There is peasant unrest, there were worker strikes, because Russia primarily was a very feudal and agricultural based poor economy, very feudal and very agricultural. So people were not able to get any kind of a lot of economic empowerment was not there. There were only two cities which had any kind of industrialization. It was Moscow and St. Petersburg. And when you look at the entire map of Russia, you'll figure out that this is like nothing in terms of the geography. So in 1905, there was revolution, but it was squashed, nothing happened. In 1904 to 1905, so for almost a year, there was a Russo-Japan war. So if you look at this map, and this map is as of 1904, 1905. So this is not the today, the recent map. So here you can see the Empire of Japan. You can see the Sea of Japan. You see Yellow Sea, and you see the Port Arthur. So here is Manchuria and here is Korea, right? So what happened is that both Japan and Russia had this aspiration of taking over complete autonomy, complete control of Manchuria and Korea, both of them. And the reason was primarily because of Port Arthur. It was a very, very famous port, right? So Japan and Russia went into a war. It caused a lot of economic loss for Russia itself because Russia was defeated, and it went into a massive fiscal deficit, due to which there were more protests and mutinies and everything. This was the context that was happening. Now, what did Nicholas II also do? Nicholas II had seen that there is a lot of empowerment and industrialization happening in the West, so we should have it in Russia also. So he initiated a lot of industrialization or modernization, which was not or maybe Russia was not ready for that kind of industrialization at that scale. It was limited, but Russia was not ready. It was completely an agricultural society. So workers were created from peasants, a little minority of workers. Most of them are peasants. And they start fighting for their own rights, because when Nicholas was getting to know about all these modernization, industrialization, then the Russians were getting to know about enlightenment, and there's something called as French Revolution, right? So we'll use it against us, just like domino effect. So this was happening. Now we come to the very, though Lenin is someone that you can't explain Lenin in 5 minutes, but I'll take my chance. The real name of Lenin, like you call him as Vladimir Lenin, was Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov. So your Trotsky, your Stalin, these are not their real names. These are the which they used as their real names eventually. They used to use a lot of pseudonyms because they wanted to get against, from the surveillance of the monarchy, from the absolute monarchy of Nicholas II, which was there, the Tsarist Russia. So, not to be easily targeted, they used to use, if they're writing something, so they used to use pseudonyms. So, what happened? So, Lenin came from a very uh, affluent family, right? The problem that started happening was his parents basically, were monarchist. In fact, his father was from the Russian Orthodox Church, but his mother was half Jewish. So something which Lenin will not come to know about it in his lifetime. And he has 6, 7 siblings, like brothers and sisters, or 8. Uh, Things that changed Lenin's life at a personal level. The first thing was that, as I told you, that his parents were monarchists, so they were very much pro the Tsarist Russia. So Lenin will be like the dark underdog or the dark sheep of the family, not underdog, dark sheep. But before that, it was his elder brother Alexander, who was also very anti-monarchy. That it is absolute monarchy. It is not empowering the masses. There's so much of death. There's so much of mutiny. We don't have money. There's no industrialization. The workers don't have rights. We are in abject poverty. The monarchy is just surviving for itself. It is not helping us and everything. So his elder brother used to fight against it, and his elder brother was involved in making a lot of protests and everything against the Tsar. So sadly, the monarchist view of his parents was not something which came naturally to Lenin and his brother. When Lenin was growing up, his father passed away. So that was one aspect or one particular incident in his life that shook his faith from humanity or from God. He became very critical of God and started questioning after his father's death. The second thing that made him very radical was the death of his brother. So his brother was involved, his elder brother was involved in protest movements against Nicholas II, and to, overthrow him, and not in a sense of a coup, but to, like harm him or to injure him or whatever. So he was caught and he was killed. So at that point of time, what Russia used to do is that their biggest prison was in Siberia. So if they want to send anyone who is a prisoner, they'll send it to Siberia. If Lenin also was sent, if they want to send any mystical religious leader or any very controversial, which doesn't need a lot of attention or needs to be hidden away, then Siberia was the place where they were sent. So his brother was killed, and that made Lenin very, very radical and anti the monarch. Very radical. After the death of his brother and father, Lenin wanted to be a lawyer, but he was not allowed because he was caught in organizing protest also, because he had become very radical. Uh, for the first time, when Lenin was in his 20s, he got this job to. He started working. Eventually, he took the exam. He became a barrister. But in his 20s, he also translated Communist Manifesto in Russian. So I told you this, that when Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels were writing, they were writing in German. And when they wrote Communist Manifesto and when they wrote about Das Capital and everything. So I told you how to be something like 1917 in Russia. By the same time, when these books were, entering the Russian market, when any kind of publication was entering, so the monarch of Russia thought that these are too scientific. No one is going to really read these books and everything. So who was eventually reading this book? It was Lenin, right? So how does the word Lenin come? Like what was the reasoning behind the term Lenin? How did he use the term Lenin? So before using the name as Tulin and Petrov, which are very common Russian names, uh, he had eventually he settled on the term or the name for himself as Lenin as an alias by 1902. Historians believe that it is because with the Lena River in Siberia, and that is where the term Lenin, his name comes from, which he gave to himself. You have other Trotsky and Stalin, both of them have their own pseudonyms, which you can, right? So this is Lenin, and he was a very radical, controversial figure. He also was always very critical of anything and everything. So it can be also, he also had he was very close to his sister. So his sister also passes away naturally because of some medical issue. So imagine the psyche of him as a growing person, right? So why is Lenin important? Why we are studying about him? We are studying about him because in 1898, Lenin, along with Julius Martov, right? Look at this guy. Julius Martov, they together, along with few other members, came ahead and founded the Russian Social Democratic Party, the leftist party, starting from the European Germany. They saw that there's a socialist party, so they went ahead. They made this party, which is the Russian Social Democratic Party. But like any other left party, you will see that left parties have a lot of um, they break up. Like it's the nature. There'll be something which will be a demo, some kind of critique, and then the party will break up, and then the breaking party will break up. And this I've seen a lot in the left parties. But they both were very good friends. They started as very good friends when they started studying Marxism, when they started talking about, all the ideas. So eventually they became enemies. They started together. You see the timeline that almost the ages are almost 2-3 years the same. So almost the same age group. Uh, they started as friends, eventually became enemies. But Lenin always used to say that one of the problems with his Bolshevik party would be that it was not having Julius. One of the problems. So now what happens is that what is the story? What happens? What caused the fraction within the Democratic Party? There was so Martov, the followers of Martov would be called as Mensheviks, and the followers of Lenin's were Bolsheviks. But we'll go into that differentiation. But before that, let's understand what is the Marxist-Leninist ideology. All of this is a topic in itself. So I'm giving you in a very simplistic way. But the idea is that the first thing is that, so you have CPIM, which is Communist Party of India, Marxist. And then you have CPIML, which is Communist Party of India, Marxist Leninist, right? So what is, they have their student bodies like SFI, ISA and all. So what is the difference between Marxist and Marxist Leninist? There is a difference. So both your Marxism plus your Marxist Leninist are political. Marxism focuses more on the socio-economic thought, and Leninism is more political theory about the revolutionary angle of the Communist Party, which has to be organized. So the first thing which Marxism, Leninism talks about, or what Lenin believed in, is that you can't leave history to itself in the way of the evolution in dialectical materialism and expect that it will happen naturally. Like Lenin believed that from going from the stage of capitalism to socialism to communism, you cannot let history do it by itself. It You need to intervene. You need to intervene and make it happen, right? Just because Marx has given us dialectical materialism and he has explained to us historical materialism doesn't mean that it's going to happen in that way. You have to intervene as members of, the working class. So, but not all working class are capable of creating the dictatorship of the proletariat. He also believed that. So he believed that out of all the working class, there has to be a council of those in the hierarchy who are capable enough to cause the revolution. So they're not all the working class which initially starts the revolution towards socialism. That council of working class would be called as the vanguard party. So the vanguard party would be made of few working class who are going to cause the empowerment and revolution for the rest of the working class. So he didn't believe that all the working class were. So the question that you can ask is that did Lenin believe that all of them are equal? So equality in what context? Equality politically or equality in action? So here, he obviously doesn't believe that all of them are equal enough for the action, right? Uh, he also said that the Marxist-Leninist discourse is that, uh, so what is Marxism telling you? That the first stage is primitive communism, the second stage is ancient mode of production, the third is feudalism, the fourth is uh, capitalism, fifth is socialism, and the sixth is communism. So what Lenin is saying that after capitalism, there will be another stage called as imperialism, which is the highest stage of capitalism. So he added a new stage, right? That imperialism is also there. And he did not trust spontaneous movements or spontaneous revolutions. He thought of planning it out, structuring it out, thinking it before, and then taking the final step. So that needs that he strongly believed that all the working class are not capable of having class consciousness, right? Class consciousness is an earned or acquired trait that people pay the price of through revolution and then are able to imbibe, or they once they understand it they have to pay the price, but not everyone is capable of being class conscious. That is what Lenin was clearly talking about. And this is why you needed the vanguard party. Now I want to make you stress in the context of what is the context of Russia, which is different. The context of Russia, which is different irrespective of what Lenin is saying, is that in Europe you had stages like from primitive to ancient to feudal to capitalism to socialism, whatever started happening is that there were years that went into in between all these stages. 10 years, 50 years, 20 years, 100 years, right? It didn't happen immediately and spontaneously. It took 50 years, 70 years, right? There was a longevity which was involved in going from one stage to the other. So but Russia was one empire which was going from feudalism to completely socialism. The number of years that capitalism survived in the West and is still surviving, Russia didn't have that structure. Russia was completely feudal and agricultural, and it was trying to become socialist. So one of the reasons why people think about why Soviet Union lost or fall or dissolved was also because it was too quick. You needed to have a stage of capitalism to before experiment with socialism. So that was one context which was different in the concept of Russia. The second reason with Lenin, there was this internal fraction that I told you about. So in the First World War, as you know, Russian Empire was a part of it. People were not getting food because the Ottoman Empire was blocking all the food supplies. People were dying. There were more than 90 lakhs or 100,000. A lot of people had died. A lot of people had died in the First World War, and so the Socialist Party, which both Julius and Lenin were part of, it fragmented and it became into two parties. One was called as the Bolsheviks and the other was called as the Mensheviks. So what is the difference? Bolshevik eventually, technically in the Russian language, Bolshevik means majority, member of the majority party. But it was contradictory. Bolshevik was in minority. And Menshevik means a member of minority, but because Julius had more, uh, charisma, Martov was famous that, he had this charm of everyone, even his enemies in him. So he had more appeal. And Mensheviks basically mean a member of the minority, but it was the opposite. It was majority, that was minority. Anyway, Bolsheviks believed in highly centralized party, professional, revolutionary. So someone who is a party member is only a revolutionary, not a sympathizer. I can have sympathy for the leftist cause, that doesn't make me a leftist. So Lenin will tell me that no, then you're not, get out. But Martov will tell me that no, it needs to be democratic. Even though you have sympathy, that means something. We will allow disagreement to happen, but it is democratic. So Bolshevik, you can see, is much more dictatorial, and Menshevik is comparatively more democratic. Bolsheviks were not willing to work with the middle class, right? Middle class, here comes the working class, which was suddenly emerging in the St. Petersburg and in Moscow. But Menshevik was like, we can work with the middle class, we can, time they have the agenda, we can work with them, right? Bolsheviks drew less public attention. They don't want it to be a lot of, they had their own Red Army, they had militia, they had a stronger military, like militia unit than the Mensheviks, but they didn't want to be noticed much. But Mensheviks wanted to draw a lot of public support and sympathy, that this is a cause, this is why we are fighting, this is the awareness. Bolsheviks scorned other ideologies. Imagine Lenin had created a different paradigm in the Marxist lens. So they scorned other ideologies. And Mensheviks were inclusive of other ideologies and trying to find out the middle path and everything. Bolsheviks believed very strongly that Russia will move on from a monarchy, which is feudal and very much agricultural based economy, directly to a communist society. So there will be no stage of capitalism or even socialism. But critics believe that it has to be step by step, as Marx has said. Right? These were the two basic fractions, and these are the 6, 7 differences. So in short, you can say that Bolsheviks was ruled by under the dictatorship of Lenin, and Mensheviks were under the dictatorship of Martov, who both started as friends. Remember? So this was one fragmentation that happened. Now, what happened in 1917? So when I say about 1917 revolution, I don't mean only one revolution. There were two revolutions. One was in March and the other one was in November. But there's a different kind of calendar that was used before. They've used the Julian calendar. We are using the Gregorian calendar. So technically, it is said as February 1917 and October 1917. Right. So these are the 2 months where revolutions took place. So what happened in February 1917 is that Nicholas II was taken over. He was jailed. Nicholas wanted his brother to become the next Tsar, but Michael was like, "Are you kidding me? There's so much of demonstration happening, so much of protest happening, and you are in house arrest and caged and everything." So Michael was like, "I don't want to be," or Mikhail was like, "I don't want to be the next Tsar." So the Tsarist Russia was taken over, and then provisional government was formed, as in a Duma was formed, a parliament, like a House of Commons, not House Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, but at least a parliament, a structure of it was formed, which was not there. And Mensheviks actually did it. It was done by Mensheviks. But then what started happening, that after February 1917, more demonstrations against the Mensheviks started happening, because the aristocratic class is not going to sit down. So Mensheviks asked the help of Bolsheviks, because they had the Red Army and they had this very strong militia. So Lenin was called, and then Lenin overtook all of them. Like, get lost Nicholas, get lost aristocrats, get lost the entire, provisional government. We are going to take over. The Bolsheviks are going to take over, which was initially a minority. So that is why you have the red color, Lal Salam. So what started happening is that it is considered that, for those students who were debating that all do revolutions need to be always, spilling a lot of blood and very violent, the answer is that in that defense, you can say that 1917, the two revolutions that happened in February and October, technically it's March and November, but we say because of the calendar that we follow that these are bloodless, no one died. But then immediately what will happen is that there is a civil war that Russia is thrown into. Immediately after Bolsheviks take place, the whites were here not just people who are white. It was the Menshevik, it was the monarchist, it was the aristocrats, the clergy started fighting with the Bolsheviks. And this civil war was very, very violent. Even though February 1917 and October 1917 revolutions were bloodless, the civil war which happened till 1922 was very, very, you know, violent in its nature, right? So when I talk about Russian Revolution, I am calling the time frame from 1917 to 1922. So your Soviet Union established in 1922. The first premier is Lenin, and he dies within 2 years. He dies in 1924. Like Soviet Union is created. It is the republic of 15 more Eastern European countries, and within 2 years, Lenin dies. So what happens is that there's a lot of, then Stalin comes. He was the general secretary, and then he becomes the premier. The idea is that if Lenin would have lived long, maybe Russia wouldn't have, maybe Soviet Union wouldn't have become a totalitarian state. But that is one scenario building that you can have. But Stalin was very, very uh, dictatorial and totalitarian. When the state is very powerful, then irrespective of that, Soviet Union continued from 1922 till 1989. So what are the reasons why Soviet Union collapsed? The first is the Cold War. So the entire Cold War between US with its liberal democracy and capitalism versus communism. The second aspect is also, and they both are nuclear capable countries. The second is also the level of industrialization and the level of economy, the fiscal crisis. The state had a lot of crisis. So when Gorbachev started with, though he didn't start glasnost and perestroika to collapse the Russian economy, but eventually it became like that. So that is one of the reasons why it failed. Then there was massive internal fractions which were happening in the European countries itself. The Russian Orthodox Church, which was there, had, the European countries had problems with that also, the Eastern European countries. So the Baltic states wanted their own independence. Economically, the political economic structure of Marxism Leninism failed, just failed. So, but Marxism Leninism was also the philosophy which was the state policy which was there in Laos, Vietnam, Cuba, and China. If you go into the very constitution and see that, you'll see that the policy which they still follow to a certain degree is Marxism Leninism in the facade of communism, right? Because communism, I told you, has never been achieved. It's moneyless, no hierarchy, no private property, no state. That has never happened, right? So all of them are socialist. So that is when in 1989, your wall, the Great Wall dividing Germany, was broken. And it took 2 years, 3 years to break down that wall. And over the period of time, all these countries, Poland, Latvia, Estonia, all these started getting independent. It was only Romania where it was, again, a very violent uh, revolution starting from 1989, right? But in other countries, it was not that violent. So all of them, these satellite states, got freedom. One of the reasons why, if you want to study further, you can study further the books of Masha Gessen, who is a very commendable non-binary transgender activist settled in US, who writes about Putin. And often they have spoken about, I'm using the pronoun they, so they have spoken about autocracy, and often in terms of even talking about Putin and the challenges. So starting with the idea of how Putin was as a KGB agent, writing about it, writing about homophobia over there. So you can read Masha Gessen. Also, the impact of how the relations between UK and Russia. You can watch this Netflix documentary which has been released called as Salisbury Poisoning, which happened in 2018. You can watch that. So that is very interesting. Now, talking about another paradigm of the collapse of Soviet Union. So, because in communism or in Marxism as an ideology, you don't have any religion. So, when Israel declared its independence in 1948, it gave this permit to any Jew who is in any part of the world to have the right to return. That you can return to Israel and you'll get your own property, your own house, everything, a citizenship. So, what happened was the Russian Jews who came back, most of them, they didn't have any Jewish culture. They didn't follow Judaism. They didn't. They were descendants of Jews, but they themselves didn't have any idea of what Judaism is. But eventually, they came to Russia for citizenship. So the Interior Ministry in Israel, they came to Israel for citizenship. So Israel basically has had a very difficult relation with them because Israel is it's a democracy with a lot of Jewish connotations. So what started happening was there was this new concept of, and Judaism is very orthodox or conservative, not be converted into a Hindu. So it's in the same way you can't be converted into a Jew. There was a new strand of this Judaism which started, which was reformist, in which you can convert into Judaism if you marry and others. But in Orthodox Judaism, you can't convert. It is against the entire Testament and everything. So to accommodate the Russian Jews who had come and settled in Israel, there was a new form of category of Jews which was created called as Messianic Jews, who had both Christian and Jewish heritage. So what I'm trying to tell you, why did I use this? I added this to tell you that there was this repercussion. We all study about the political economic repercussion of the collapse of Soviet Union, but how did it in fact have a religious connotation also is something which uh, can be seen in the Russian text in Israel, basically. So now we are eventually done with this particular. It's very quick, I know. You can't study 70, 80, 100 years in 20 minutes. But the basic fact you have to understand is who was Lenin, who were the Bolsheviks, what was the 1917 revolution, when did the Soviet Union collapse. These are the basic factual details that you have to keep in mind. Who was ruling before in the Russian Empire, right? If you have time, you can figure out about Rasputin. So what I'm trying to say is that these are the factual details you have to figure out eventually to know that Soviet Union collapsed because of the economic and the fiscal deficit, plus the various kinds of natures of totalitarian states. So, for example, though Hitler is famous for a lot of genocide of the Jews, Stalin was also one of them who did it. Stalin was also involved in, the genocide of Jews. So we don't know about all of this, but these were bits of, like, he became very paranoid. Stalin over the period of time became very paranoid, and any kind of altercation, any kind of questioning, any kind of rebuttal could make you lose your life. So that was what Stalin became, and that was what he made the entire idea of Marxism into a totalitarian state, right? So this is what you have to understand from that, and that's it. This is the